have
Good
Mr.
morning.
Pickens, if you don't mind leading the pledge.
Father, we thank you for how you have been with us and you continue to be with us. We thank you for the privilege to open these meetings with prayer. We thank you for this leadership seeking you in the beginning of the monthly meetings. We lift up to you the Putnam County leadership team. We ask for your guidance and direction. We pray for united efforts in moving our community forward. We pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in Putnam County. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. And I'd like to pay attention to Mr. Bobby Payne, who's in our audience. Thank you, Mr. Bobby, for being here. I'd like to move ahead, guys, and for the approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the minutes of March 13th, February 13th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. What's approval of amendments? And then we're going to move to our proclamation of Tobacco-Free Florida Week. And I didn't see Miss Mary.
Yeah.
There she is. She hides behind the podium there. And Mr. Harvey, if you'll read that.
Glad to, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Putnam County Proclamation 2018 Tobacco-Free Florida Week 2018. Whereas while smoking in Florida is low overall, there are geographic and demographic inequalities across the state. And where Tobacco-Free Florida is a statewide campaign dedicated to identifying innovative solutions in order to achieve health equality across Florida and help reduce tobacco use among diverse groups, something in that. Okay, especially in rural areas and certain subpopulations. And whereas tobacco control programs can work toward health equality by focusing efforts on decreasing the prevalence of tobacco use and secondhand smoke exposure and improving access to tobacco control resources among populations experiencing greater tobacco-related health and economic burdens. And whereas Tobacco-Free Florida's Quit Your Way program gives tobacco users in all counties access to free tools and services to help them quit. And whereas Tobacco-Free Florida and the Florida Department of Health, Putnam County focuses on addressing tobacco-related health disparities and improving health equality and tobacco prevention and control in Putnam County. Whereas the Florida Department of Health, Putnam County, is committed to the goals and objectives of Tobacco-Free Florida Week through a variety of public health activities and programs. Now, therefore, the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners do hereby proclaim April 2nd through 8th, 2018 as Tobacco-Free Florida Week. Mr. Chairman, I move approval on this proclamation.
We have a proper approval and a proper second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moves.
Just wanted to show during our fair this last 2 weeks, we had a campaign for our students becoming the first generation that's tobacco-free. So we've got the banners that were signed by hundreds of youth at our fairgrounds. So we thought that might be fun. I didn't know if you wanted to have a picture with all of them.
Yes, let's go. Good in.
Take this with me.
Mr. Sagan.
Come up along there.
Sure. Hey, let's bring the banners up here.
There you go.
Get in the banner. Get in the banner there. Don't you want me to stand by you?
Yes, because
Okay, at this time, Mr. Gregg, are you going to come up alone? You're going to bring your group with you? Okay, this is our Declaration for Community Awareness of Combating Drug and Alcohol Addiction. Other terms is called U-Turn. It's a great program. And with that, Mr. Turner is going to read the proclamation.
Mr. Chairman, declaring April 2018 as the month for community awareness and unity in combating drug, alcohol addiction in Putnam County, Florida. Whereas we as a nation continue to experience an ever-increasing drug and alcohol addiction epidemic with new, more potent and deadly forms of illicit drugs continually flooding all areas of our country. And whereas addicts continually devise new ruses to obtain prescription drugs to feed their addiction, and whereas the devastating consequences drug and alcohol addiction have on our families, communities, crime statistics, healthcare system, and our nation affect every person, and whereas the saddest consequences, drug and or alcohol addiction is the #1 deaths as a result of accidental drug overdoses, especially those of a young age. And whereas Putnam County's addiction problem continues to grow epidemically, snaring all people of all ages and walks of life, and whereas recognizing the grave importance and need to battle this epidemic, some of Putnam County's elected officials, churches, local law enforcement, business owners, citizens, affected families and friends have united to fight drug and or alcohol addiction excuse me, and its devastating effects. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners on the 27th day of March that April 2018 is hereby declared as community-wide anti-drug and alcohol abuse addiction awareness and combat month. Be it further proclaimed that all citizens, families, church leaders, and congregations, local government leaders, local county and city law enforcement, representatives of our local health, mental health and drug coalitions, civic organizations, and business owners are hereby encouraged to attend and participate in the upcoming 2018 U-Turn Anti-Drug and Alcohol Dependence Community Outreach to be held on April 14, 2018 at the John Theobald Sports Complex, 120 Carter Road, Palatka. Done, ordered, and proclaimed this 27th day of March 2018. Mr. Chairman, I move this proclamation.
Okay. Have a proper
Second.
Proper second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so moves.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. My name is Greg Harvey. I am the Treasurer of U-Turn Community Outreach. I'm standing in today for our Board Chairman, Casey Kaysen, who is out of town. We're here for this proclamation declaring April as the month for community awareness and unity in combating drug and alcohol addiction in Putnam County. With me are some of our many volunteers without whom this event we're about to put on would not be able to take place. I'm going to give you a brief history about U-Turn. U-Turn is an anti-drug and alcohol addiction outreach that originated at Southside Baptist Church through a personal experience, was held at the church in 2011 and 2012, then in 2013 evolved into U-Turn Community Outreach and became a community-wide event. It was held that year at Riverfront Park and again in 2014. 2015, we relocated the event to the John Theobald Sports Complex. The event was held there again in 16 and 17. We'll be home the event again this year. We'd like to express our thanks and appreciate the staff and employees of the Parks and Recreation Department who have been very helpful and accommodating for us in this event. U-Turn 2018 Community Outreach is now in its 8th year. It will be held Saturday, April 14th from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. As of this morning, U-Turn 2018 is being sponsored by 3 corporate sponsors, 15 churches, 44 businesses, 3 agencies, and 44 individuals. It takes a lot to put the event on. Our goal all along has been to help local people who are ready to make a U-turn in their lives by turning away from their addiction. Now, I'm happy to report that we've been able to do that since 2015 when U-Turn Community Outreach gave our first scholarship to a local young lady who had successfully completed a Teen Challenge recovery program. We were able to help her attend the Emerging Leaders College and earn her degree in ministry. She is now program director at a Teen Challenge facility in Pensacola, Florida. Since that time, we have presented scholarships to more than half a dozen other local young men and women to help them enter an addiction recovery program. All this is made possible only by the generous giving of businessmen, community leaders, individuals, and others in our community have an interest in seeing people make a U-turn in their lives. U-Turn is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, fully tax deductible. We have no paid staff, and all proceeds beyond the cost of the event go to helping local people make a U-turn in their life. U-Turn Community Outreach addresses drug and alcohol prevention, awareness. We offer referrals and help, and most of all, we offer help to those who are in need. The event on this year, the U-Turn Community-wide event, will have children's activities, education, information, dramas, testimonies from Teen Challenge groups in South Florida, and from our local Celebrate Recovery group, which is headed up by Jeremy and Melissa Ray. This year, our special guests are Pastor Reggie Osborne, his wife, Dr. Marian Osborne, who has a substance recovery program at Victory Church in Boca Raton. We'll also have live music, free food, and plenty of door prizes. The entire event is free. We all know Putnam County has had its share of very serious problems and tragedy related to drug and alcohol addiction. Each and every one of us has been affected one way or another, either directly or indirectly, perhaps on our family, perhaps someone we know, perhaps just through the crime statistics in our town, the price of everything going up. Putnam County has and continues to experience all these things. There was a pastor from the town of Manchester, Kentucky, which oddly enough is in the county of Putnam County, Kentucky, which once had a problem very similar to Putnam County, Florida. He said, "What's worse than the darkness is the lack of light from our local churches." I believe we can relate to that. U-Turn exists to try to help shed and spread light on the issue of drug and alcohol addiction in Putnam County. The U-Turn theme verse, 2 Chronicles 5:17 states, "Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new." That's where a true U-turn takes place in a person's life, it's eternal, with or without drug or alcohol addiction. Having the event in the springtime, I believe, also symbolizes the newness of life all around us. U-Turn has been making a difference in the lives of others around this community. There are many others from Putnam County and surrounding areas who have turned their lives around and are now living a clean, sober, happy, and healthy life. U-Turn stands ready to assist any local individual who is ready to make a U-turn away from drug and alcohol addiction by helping them get into a Christian recovery program. Lastly, I want to thank you, the Board of County Commissioners, not just for your support, but also for the kindness that you've shown ever since the inception of U-Turn. We've always received your moral support, but for many of you, we've also received your financial support, your time, and your prayers, and we thank you for that. We have received representation from this board every year since U-Turn was started. It takes a community coming together to reach the community through outreach. U-Turn stands on a foundation of Christ unity, where Christians and community come together for good. We are thankful for you and the businesses, the churches, and fellow citizens that help us to continue reaching out to the community to let them know that we care about them and that there is a hope and a future for them that is free from the bondage of addiction. Our goal is to see hopeless drug addicts turned into drugless hope addicts. Mm-hmm. So on behalf of U-Turn and all those who stand with me today, we thank you. And may God bless you all.
You want to get a picture? Okay.
Mr. Harvey, I have to tell you, we had heavy persuasion from a former employee standing beside you to participate in this program.
I chose not to introduce him. I figured that would be a little unnecessary.
She needs no introduction. see you out there. Mr. Harvey, thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, okay. All right, thank you very much. We're going to take a recess, open up our Port Authority meeting. First off is the approval of the minutes.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a proper first, proper second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're going to open up for any public comment on the Port Authority items. Seeing none, I'll close that portion. And I think, Mr. Manning, are you going to explain the lease on Port Road?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we have before you today is a lease agreement for the Barge Port warehouse with a company that Castlelight Industries that Mr. Bergen primarily and I have been working on for quite some time now. I guess it's been a couple of years since we first met with them, and we talked about the spec building, and we talked about this building. We've kind of gone back and forth. But we do have a lease for the Bargeport building before you today. That lease commences April 1, 2018. It's a 3-calendar-year lease with two one-year renewals, so a total of potentially 5 years. The rent for the first year is at a zero rate. $1 per square foot for year 2, $2 per square foot for year 3, and $3 per square foot for years 4 and 5 if renewed. Basically, the reason why you're seeing a $0 lease and a reduced rent rate is I guess twofold. One, to encourage some economic development in the county. This is a business that we're hoping will grow here in our county, as well as they're doing a number of improvements to the county's building, which will be the property of the county when the lease is terminated. And that's going to include some indoor work as well as some outside work in the building to make it look nicer. And to bring a considerable amount of electrical service to the building, 480 volt, 3-phase, 800 amp, which is considerable and would certainly be beneficial for potential lessees in the future. The way the lease is structured is that they have, from the lease effective date of April 1, they have 90 days or up to 90 days to have the electrical work brought in. It's pretty considerable work that has to be done to bring the electrical in. Then once the electrical is in, then they have up to an additional 90 days to finish the rest of the improvements to the building, and then it commences. So basically, there's about up to 6 months basically for the improvements before their actual commencement of the lease. They are required to be fully operational within that period of time and to remain fully operational in order to not be in default of the lease. I know Mr. Bergen is here. I don't know if he's got any additional comments he wants to say about the company and what they do. I can tell you it is what they will be doing out there is, where do I have it in here? Manufacturing utilizing molding and extruding machines, and it is a recycled tire product. And they make things out of recycled tires.
That is correct. It actually is a recycling company. What they will be doing is taking crumb rubber and molding that into products like railroad ties, utility poles, and seawall blocks to start with, and also the road crossing or road grade crossings for railroads. So it is a recycling company. Mostly what will be happening at the Bargeport is just molding with the large machines.
Mr. Chairman, while we all know him, I think you need to ask him to state his name and address.
I apologize. Brian Bergen, Vice President, Economic Development, the Chamber of Commerce, 1100 Reed Street, Palatka, Florida. My apologies.
Mr. Harvey, you had a comment?
Mr. Bergen, thank you so much for being here, and I thank you for the hard work. You know, often we hear that Putnam County offers no incentives to bring businesses in, and that's just not true. We all work very hard to bring businesses in, and I look forward to this, and I thank you for your hard work, you and our staff and our attorney, getting this paperwork done. It just goes to show that we all work together, we can see marvelous things take place. So thank you very much. I do have a question, though. You said telephone pole or light poles? Is
Utility poles, yes.
Out of rubber?
Yeah, they take a plastic composite along with the rubbers. It's all scrap product.
Are they going to bend in the wind? Or?
They have to meet a certain ANSI standard for that as well. And we have actually been assisting them in working with a large utility in the state of Florida to get them approved. So their poles they actually have made a model and are having it tested in Colorado, I believe, is where that testing is.
If you don't mind, when they're ready for a little tour, I'd love to go take a look at it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Mr. Lible?
Last meeting, Mr. Manning, I asked about the crane at the dock, and I'm sure with those telephone poles being mentioned, that in this process, while he's gearing up, can we have that crane certified? We were going to check on the status. I think, Press, you're over that. Is that correct? Or did we make any progress there?
I think that's
I'll have to defer to.
Yeah, we have actually went back and looked at some maintenance records on that, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Tompkins. We are in the process of trying to track those down, see when the last time it was actually maintenance and certified, because we received that property as a donation from someone else. So we're going to have to look and see what we can do about getting that information, and then getting a company out to give us a cost estimate if that's what it takes to get it back up and running and to the standard that it needs to be. If not, then we'll be looking at other alternatives.
Okay. I'd just like to stay in his timeline, his production date, and being ready to go on our end as well as his.
We'll do all we can, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Before you do, Mr. Chairman, I have to declare a conflict in this and recuse myself from voting.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Now,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve a lease as presented.
Second.
All right, we have proper first, proper second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion moves. We're gonna,
You got old business?
no, not yet. Oh, yes, you're right. Old business on the Port Authority?
I have none.
I have none.
I have none.
Okay, in that case, we will close the Port Authority, and we're also gonna take a 3-minute recess. We have well, basically, we're reconvening, then we're going to take a 3-minute recess. We have a 9:30 certain. And we're going to move to our legal part. Sir, Mr. Castleberry, if you'll come up to the podium and state your name and address.
Russell Castleberry, 122 Pointed Woods Trail, Palatka, Florida. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here on behalf, representing the Putnam County Development Authority regarding a bond issue on behalf of Seminole Electric. In the audience, we have Bobby Payne and Ryan Hart representing Seminole. They're in the back there. Yesterday, the Development Authority met. I believe I told this board a meeting or two ago that this transaction would be coming to you fairly soon. The Development Authority met yesterday, approved the issuance of $125,250,000 in bonds to refinance a 2007 issuance of bonds on behalf of Seminole by the Development Authority. So we're here today to get this board's approval as required by Florida statute, even though neither the county nor the Development Authority has any liability on these bonds. The Board of the County Commissioners has to approve it. So that's what we're here today to do. We have 3 of the board members, 2, I guess. 3. And Mr. Smith. Mr. Harvey, Mr. Pickens, Mr. Lible, and Mr. Smith, who's chairman of the Development Authority, were at the meeting yesterday. We had 8 of the 9 Development Authority members there, and the resolution passed 8-0. I don't know if Mr. Smith wants to add anything to this.
No, but I appreciate the opportunity to serve as chair of the Development Authority, and we ask for the Commission's acceptance and approval of this resolution.
That's really all I have, unless there's any questions. It's simply a refinancing of a 2007 issue, and it's very much like you did a few weeks ago on the Continental bond offering.
Mr. Chairman, I'll
Yes,
move
sir.
approval.
We have a proper second. All those in favor say aye.
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 It moves.
Thank you very much.
That's easy.
Okay, we will now move to public comment. I have cards up here, and it looks like these 3 are on animal control. So before I go to those, is there any other public comment not involving animal control? Okay, seeing none, I will move to Willie the Lucen, and please come forward, give your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Willie Thalosen, 129 East Cowpen Lake Point Road, Hawthorne, 32640. So a group of us came and talked to y'all 2 weeks ago about animal control issues. And I was, need to speak closer? Is that better? Mm-hmm. So as you may remember, I was viciously attacked by some dogs in the neighborhood, 3 dogs. On February 24th. And we're still really frustrated. Why isn't animal control enforcing the county's ordinances? I've asked animal control, the officer, the department head, Mr. Suggs. Still have not got an answer why the county isn't enforcing its animal control ordinances. What they're doing currently is monitoring our neighborhood instead of removing these vicious dogs from the neighborhood. So the county's resources are being used to have animal control drive through our neighborhood, sit at the bus stop, watching the bus stop every day, instead of freeing up their resources to enforce their animal control ordinances all over the county. There's 3 vicious dogs in our neighborhood that should have been removed according to the county ordinance. And I can read it if you'd like.
You have a little over a minute left,
okay.
So if you can do it.
So I'll just paraphrase it. The ordinance states that if a dog viciously attacks and it has not been deemed dangerous, the dog shall be immediately confiscated, impounded, and euthanized after 10 days. I was viciously attacked by 3 dogs, and these dogs are still in our neighborhood. Animal control has done nothing to try to prevent these dogs from harming others. According to your codes, all they're doing is monitoring our neighborhood. These dogs can get loose any time of day. Your ordinance says they shall be impounded. They haven't been. And this isn't their first offense. The first time they attacked, they weren't investigated. There was just a bite report. After that first time, according to your ordinances, they should have been investigated and most likely been deemed dangerous. And on the second attack, they would have been immediately impounded and euthanized. So the county is not enforcing its ordinances. We beg you to enforce them. I know you're working on stricter ordinance or whatever, but no matter how strict your ordinances are, if they're not being enforced, they're not going to work. So please, I don't know what you can do. We'll keep coming back, asking, begging. I'm going to meet with Mr. Suggs next week and go over the ordinances, and hopefully he can explain why or why not the ordinance is being enforced. I just want to read a quote from
Your time
a friend's
is up.
letter. Okay.
You could have Karen read it if you would like.
Okay.
Ms. Karen Newman,
Thanks for your time.
please give your name and your address.
Hello, I'm Karen Newman, 148 Tucker Lake Road. Willie's writing's not the best, so here we go. When sensible codes are enforced, property values rise and people are safer. When that kind of progression happens, a community is elevated. It becomes a better place to live, raise a family, and do business. We aren't interested in moving to those counties. We want our county to be among one of those places. Dogs should have been deemed dangerous after the first reported attack. We're just frustrated with animal services. Was that it, Willie? That's it. Okay. One thing that's happening in Melrose area are there's some 3 dogs that are just being mistreated. No water, no shelter, nothing. And animal control, we were doing a lot of posts and a lot of phone calls were being made, and all of a sudden 2 of the dogs disappeared, which we assume the owners probably took away. And 1 dog is still left there. We called it animal control. They came out and they left a 24-hour notice saying, we'll be back, contact us. And in that 24-hour period, that dog could die if a friend of ours isn't over there feeding it, taking care of it. It's not her dog. She's just worried about it. It's got sores all over it. It's emaciated and it looks, anyway, the health is real bad on it. But they didn't do anything. They just left it. And they said, we'll be back in 24 hours. And the person who's actually watching the dog right now, not her dog, she's there waiting for the animal control to show up, see if they're really going to do it. So anyway, it's a problem with, that you have to wait 24 hours when you see a dog that's obviously, in the process of dying. They're just waiting 24 hours. One thing she mentioned was that the animal control doesn't even carry a chip reader, because they could put a chip reader on the ear and see who owns a dog and contact them that way through a phone number, or see if the dog has been stolen and just left there. That'd be a real nice thing for animal control to have. I don't think they're that expensive. The animal control has been at the bus stop in Willie's neighborhood. How much time? But that really doesn't do any good. Are they carrying guns to shoot the dogs if they come out to the kids? They're watching at the neighborhood. I guess they're circling around, but if all the kids are walking home and the dogs are still loose, they can still attack a kid. They can't protect all the kids from 3 vicious dogs, because the dogs can still get out of the backyard. It's not fenced in the backyard. Those owners of those 3 dogs have now closed the gate, and in the past that hadn't been closed. But it was when the Jacksonville 4 News showed up, that's when they decided to close the gate. So I guess that's probably about it. Anything else? Okay.
Right. Thank you very much. Lorraine Douglas. Yeah, please state your name, address, limit 3 minutes.
Thank you. Lorraine Douglas, 181 East Cowpen, Lake Point Road, Hawthorne, Florida, 32640, Putnam County. Here we are again, 2 weeks later. The vicious dogs remain at 106 East Cowpen, Lake Point Road. The residents are still unable to walk on the dirt road or ride bikes past this house for fear they will be viciously attacked by these 3 dogs. The owners have closed their gate, as you heard, and strung various disgusting plastic pieces, moss, straw mats, etc. on the chain link fence, so we are unable to see the dogs or know if they are loose in the yard. Although the front gate is closed, the dogs have left the property before by getting out on the lake side of the house. Yes, we see animal control driving up and down the road, but they are not making the owners of these dogs take responsibility for what their dogs have already done. I am so tired of hearing if this was Alachua County, Marion County, Duval County, Levy County, etc., the dogs would have been removed a long time ago. And the answer is not to have all of us move to another county. Trust me. The answer is to do something about the problem, which is the 3 dogs who have attacked 5 people and viciously bitten 2 people. And that's documented. What is it going to take for the elected officials in Putnam County and the departments they oversee to take some action, not so much on any and all dogs that live in the neighborhood, but these specific 3 dogs who are guilty of being vicious? Please remove these dogs from our neighborhood. We would also like to have a copy of the report from the animal behaviorist who assessed these dogs. I believe we have a right to know what that report says as residents of Putnam County and residents of Cowpen Lake Point Road. Thank you, and please hear us. We're not going to go away. We live in fear, and I do not believe that is how you want your Putnam County residents to live. We need your help, and we are counting on all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to just reiterate, anytime you have a problem, complaint, animals, or whatever it is, please do not hesitate to call in. It doesn't always happen to get resolved real quick, but please call it in. If we don't know, we can't even do anything about it. Mr. Suggs, did you want to comment on anything?
Sure, if you wish, Mr. Chairman. We don't normally do this, but first of all, I'll be more than happy to address the situation, not the comments here this morning, but the situation. As you're aware, we've been informed of a situation out there at the Cowpen Lake area. As you heard from the statements this morning, there has been an increase in patrol of the area. We've actually, and yes, we have sat at the school bus stop in the afternoon just to verify and make sure that there is no safety issues there at this point. I personally rode that community myself last week and spoke to some of the residents. I also videotaped the entire route through the neighborhood. There was one dog that I found that was not within a contained area or on a leash, but the owner was with it. We had a conversation about that as well. So, you know, we're doing what we can to process that situation. I'm not going to comment this morning on the merits of the case that's in front of us today. I don't think that's appropriate. But I will tell you that staff is working diligently to do the things we can do to protect our citizens of Putnam County, and in this area in particular because of the issue that we have pending today. So there's things that are being done that are behind the scenes. We've also tried to hold other meetings. Our animal control subcommittee that was working on the ordinance was meeting last week when it got to a point to where it was not productive, so we had to shut down the meeting and move forward on other items. But once again, we're going to continue doing what we're supposed to be doing. We are meeting with the subcommittee and we are working on upgrading our ordinances. We are doing the things to put measures in place that will protect our community and our citizens from these issues. However, you know, as I rode through that community, there was probably as many gates that were on properties that were open as they were gates that were shut. And so, you know, we'll do all we can, and we'll continue to improve our service and customer relations and the things that we can control here. And that's where we're at with the matter.
Yeah, I knew that you had been going in there. Mr. Manning?
If I could just mention that the reason why our ordinance and state statutes require that and full investigation be done before animals be seized is to ensure that due process is given to the owners of those animals. I know it may be frustrating for some folks, but we do need to do that.
Yes, sir. Any other comment? Mr. Powell?
Good morning, Kevin Powell, Interim Director, Planning and Development Services. Just want to touch base on Mr. Crosby's report that was requested. We're still waiting on that. Mr. Crosby did have a death in the family, so this is the reason that the report is delayed. So I just want to go ahead and put that out where we are with that report.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Powell, you sent that out to an email like last week or the week before that there was a death in the family, and that report would be coming when that time was right, didn't you?
That would have been forwarded from Lisa or from
Okay.
Bob. So, but I did just want to put that out there so everybody knows that that's what's going on with the report.
And as soon as we get that report, we'll make it available to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you
Chairman,
very much. Yes, sir, Mr. Lyman.
if I could, Mr. Manning, as far as Florida state statutes versus our local ordinance, does it supersede our local ordinance, and do they not parallel each other?
Well, they do parallel each other. Our ordinance basically mirrors what's in the statute. I mean, I'd have to look at the verbiage precisely, but I'm quite sure that it does. The state statute does allow for us to be, what's the word? Provide for stiffer enforcement and penalties if we so choose. It doesn't by its terms preempt us from doing that. But currently, I believe currently, and the new one as well, mirrors what the state statute requires.
So if our ordinance says, according to some of our constituents this morning and last meeting, that we are to pick them up after an incident, why are we not doing so?
Well, again, I think they're investigating whether the incident falls within the definition and can provide a strong case for taking the animal. And again, that is what's required. But I can't speak to the facts or what their investigation has found.
They're not getting the insurance that these dogs aren't going to attack again. How can we provide that? I mean, there's got to be something within animal control. Have we been out? Ms. Suarez, could you come to the podium, please? My question is just one. How do we know they can't get out again? They've been out multiple times. I know you have told me that the owners made repairs to a fence, but assure us, tell us, where we're going with this.
Yes, sir. They've also not only made repairs to the fence, but we've also been out there. I personally have been out there at least 3 times last week, in the morning and in the afternoon. Staff has been out there. Bob occasionally takes his lunch out there and sits out there on that same road. They've also checked up with the property owner to make sure she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. So we are patrolling that area more frequent than any of the other areas, which is making us fall back behind on other cases, but we're making sure that this is being taken care of as well.
And has our behavioralist guy indicated any time frame that we'll get this report?
I just sent him an email again this morning. I'm not sure. He's not answering the phone. I'm not sure what's going on. I know it was his sister that passed away.
Mr. Manning, can we move forward without his report?
Again, I'll leave that to Lisa as the investigators. I don't know the facts enough to know what their investigation is, provided whether that gives us enough to establish the elements necessary to
Mr. Crosby is not returning calls. That's a serious matter. I mean, these people are living in fear. I mean, we got to do something. We really do. This is dragging on.
Well, the dogs have not been loose. The 3 dogs in question. Again, every time I've been by, the gate's been closed. Both gates have been closed. The only time the gate was left open is when media went there to try to talk to her, and when the gentleman left, he left the gate opened.
All right, Ms. Suarez, if you could try Mr. Crosby again, let's get some closure to this. It's dragging too long. It really is. I understand their pain.
Okay, Mr. Lyman, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you very much for explaining that. This commissioner has 0 tolerance. One time is too many times for me. And if I can't control my animal, I don't have an animal any longer. I'll tell you that, how I feel. But I also want to give a little side to a story that in Interlaken Lake Estates for a few months I've been getting calls about these dogs chasing this lady and her family. Come to find out, we can't find the dogs.
Correct.
We can't find the dogs. The dogs seem not to exist. And we went out there, your department went out there months ago asking the lady to sign a statement, a witness statement, which she refused to do.
Correct.
Only to find out that she really just wanted to move away from her landlord and use that as an excuse. Again, people use our ordinances to try to get around things sometimes. But this commissioner is glad that we are moving down this process. I'm happy that a new animal control ordinance will come out. I'm glad that the group had an opportunity. Mr. DeLose and I took you personally to that meeting the other day. So I'm glad that we're going to do that. But again, one time is too many for this commissioner. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you, Lisa. Any other comment, public comment? Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close that portion. And we're going to move to our consent agenda.
Have no items to pull, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Turner?
I have none.
Mr. Pickens?
I have none.
And Mr. Lible?
I had none either.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda items A through M.
Okay, we have proper first.
Second.
All right, proper second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the consent agenda A through M moves. Okay, and we have a 10 o'clock certain.
Mr. Chairman, before we go there, now might be a good time to address that addendum to the agenda.
Yes, sir. I was hoping, I think we've got enough time here. So we will go to basically our ship file 07-2014. And I believe, Mr. Preston, you're going to handle this?
Mr. Teeple.
I mean, Mr. Teeple. My mistake. My
That's right.
mistake.
Brian Teeple, 100 Festival Park Avenue, Jacksonville, Florida, here as your ship administrator. I sent you all a memo last week. We have a case of Tajera Ellis, who was assisted in the SHIP program back in 2007 to the tune of $65,838. She is now in the process of desiring to sell her home and is moving out of state, as I understand. And as you know, the second mortgage on those, when the county helps those people, is a declining second mortgage over time. And even though it has been 10 years and that note has been cut basically in half, based upon the purchase price and then the selling price, there's a difference of $13,793.63, and which leaves the county with a decision you could choose to accept a lesser amount to satisfy the mortgage. You could require a new unsecured note in the amount of the loss, or you could simply do nothing. And I'm here to answer any questions, first of all.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Teeple.
Good morning, sir.
How was your drive from Jacksonville?
Lovely.
Yes, has to be better than going up there.
Yes, yes, sir.
Mr. Teeple, as I struggled with this yesterday and met with our administrator and our attorney, naturally I'd like the county to be made whole as much as possible. But realistically, I understand finances, and an unsecured note is not going to help the county one bit. But also understand receiving property back is not going to help the county on a potential foreclosure. So I have a struggle there deep inside. And I want to go with the lesser of two evils. And I believe to make the county whole and not be in the real estate business, that our best option is to go ahead and forgive this. I would have liked some negotiations done ahead of time, but that wasn't possible on this case. But I will tell you that this commissioner feels very strongly the county doesn't need to be in the real estate business, and we probably need to cut our losses and run as quick as we possibly can to make our SHIP program up and running and whole again.
Sure.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lible?
Mr. Teeple, good morning.
Morning, sir.
How are you?
Good,
You
sir.
alluded in your opening statement that there was a possibility to pay a partial amount of this sum.
Yeah, the way it stands now, the county actually will receive back $25,709.17, which can be put back into the SHIP program.
Right.
So they're paying off, partially paying off the second note, according to the attached closing document.
Okay. Well, I guess that's better than nothing. Any other choices here?
You know, I want to give a shout out to Tia Atkinson, who this only came to my attention Thursday or Friday of last week, and Tia really went above and beyond to help me understand what was going on and provide me with numbers and everything. And so,
What was her suggestion?
her suggestion was the three options that I've laid out for you today.
Very good. She's a tough one. I'll go with it.
I've heard that.
All right. Well, I know she vetted it backwards and forwards,
Yes.
so.
Oh, yes, sir.
We're left with nothing to do here.
And Mr. Pickens?
I'm good. Thank you,
Thank you,
Brian,
sir.
for,
And these type of situations, I guess we don't see these very often. Are they a rush like this was, where it's like we get this at the last minute to make these decisions and not be able to maybe negotiate for somebody, a realtor, to take a lesser amount, or for somebody else down the line to cut their fees so we don't have to absorb this much?
Again, we don't have these kind of situations very often. Recall, this 2007 was the height of the market, so buying high and selling not quite so high is part of the problem. But to answer your question directly, Commissioner, oftentimes we're the last to know and have to play catch up real quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Turner, you have any comments?
The whole nature of the SHIP program is to give somebody a boost up. And that's what it's all about. This is not groundbreaking stuff that we're doing here today. I know for a fact that the SHIP program in the past has had to forgive several notes at different times and what have you. The SHIP program was never put there to try to get somebody in a crack if they sell their home or whatever. It was to try to keep somebody from making money off the SHIP program for a certain number of years. Obviously, the people aren't making money on the deal, and I just think if we don't forgive this, that it just goes against the whole SHIP program altogether. I mean, it's for a boost up. They tried. They bought their house back when it was too much money. Now it's worth less money. I just don't see where we don't have a choice other than take option 3, which is just to forgive the additional debt that the sale didn't cover. Isn't that it, Bill or Mr. People?
Commissioner, actually, the option is option 1, where you would accept the lesser amount of $25,000 and change, but yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept option number 1.
Okay, we have a proper motion on the floor.
and I'll second it for the sake of discussion. I have
Okay,
one more
proper
question.
second. Go ahead with discussion.
Mr. Teeple, in regards to the second mortgage, I'm with Commissioner Turner. This is a hand up for first-time home buyers, or home buyers. They don't have to be first-time. Do you think we need to address the second mortgage, the fact that this is allowable in this program? I don't think it makes it healthy. And I'm looking at it at a 30,000-foot view. What's your feeling on that?
You know, there are a number of options, and counties do it differently. Some counties give it simply as a grant. I think to protect the county's interest, a second mortgage is fine. You might want to decrease the term, the forgiveness rates from 20 years to 10 years, as an example. Therefore, for example, in this case, we've had a homeownership of a 10-year period, which is a pretty good long period of time. The people are moving out because they're moving out of state. And, you know, you've given somebody that hand up, Commissioner, but yet it's not hanging out for a very long time. 20 years is a pretty lengthy period of time.
It is. Okay. We'll take that in consideration.
Yes.
Well, I'll be back before you very shortly with your new housing assistance plan, and we can have that discussion at that point in time.
Please bring it up at that time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Teeple. All right, we have a
Mr.
proper
Chairman?
first, proper second. Yes, sir.
Susan has a comment or a question.
I just kind of wanted to answer the question about the late notice. We were just asked last week for the closing amount on this. Tia got contacted either by the title company or the realtor to calculate that amount, and that was just last week. So that's why it was late notice.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a proper first, proper second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, that moves. And we have a 10 a.m. certain public hearing. And Mr. Manning, are you going to handle this?
No, this is a planning hearing.
Mr. Chairman, for proper state order, do we need to do an ex parte communication, or is this just a transmittal only?
This is transmittal only, and it is a legislative function, so it is not quasi-judicial.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Mike Brown, Planning and Development Services. For you today is as it just was mentioned by Commissioner Harvey, a transmittal hearing for project LM 18001. The applicant is Big Horse Aggregates, LLC, S.J. Vaccaro, and Harold and Margaret Trescott. Agent is Environmental Consulting and Design, Inc. The request is for a large-scale future land use map amendment from Ag 1 and Ag 2 to mining on 9 parcels totaling 221.45 acres. The property is located at 363 Merrifield Lane in East Palatka, which is right on the border with Putnam and St. Johns County. As you're aware, large-scale map amendments require 2 hearings before the board. One is a transmittal hearing, which we are here today to request. Should it be approved by the commission, the proposed land use change will be sent to the various state and regional reviewing agencies, who will then send back comments or issues or concerns they have with that change, and then that will be brought back before the board for an adoption. So you will be seeing this again. The subject parcels are zoned ag, and there's a concurrent rezoning application for the subject parcel to rezone them to mining. Again, that will be brought before you. You're not acting on the rezoning today. I'm just bringing that. Will be brought forward to you also for approval along with the adoption, should you so forward the transmittal today. Just a brief history, one of the parcels was approved in 2009 for a special use permit for a borrow area. And so this is really what has happened is the applicant has utilized the amount of acreage. Well, according to the County Land Development Code, a borrow area is less than 30 acres. They've reached that amount and want to expand, so they've triggered the threshold to become a mine. Section 302031 of the Land Development Code sets forth supplemental regulations for mining activities in the county. One of those is that mining operations shall only be allowed where both the mining future land use and mining zoning districts are in place. It requires a master mining plan permit. That's a little different than anything else we have in the code. That permit is actually a permit that will be approved by the board, U5. It will come to you for approval. My hope, and I can't promise it, but my hope is that it will all be done, the zoning, land use change, and the permit will all come before you at the same hearing. So you'll have to deal with that. That's going to be staff's goal to do that. It requires a phasing schedule and, of course, a reclamation plan. This is real quickly, just to go over what's required as part of the submittals for the master mining plan permit. we'll get the maps, there's environmental assessments will be submitted, geotechnical reports, archaeological historic assessments, traffic studies, conceptual reclamation plan, and a bond surety or surety to guarantee the reclamation. Here's an aerial of it, of the proposed properties outlined in green. You can see the existing borrow area. Just to the east in St. Johns County is a mine of the same type by East Coast Aggregate, which is really, and they're tied with Big Horse Group. There's a financial tie to it. But you can see what it looks like. Here's a future land use map. Again, A1 and A2 are the future land use designations for the mining area. This is what the proposed future land use will look like should it be adopted by the county. And the current zoning is all ag. As I indicated, the existing future land uses of Ag 1 and Ag 2 do not allow mining activities. That's the reason for the request for the amendment. And again, under the mining land use category, activities that are permitted shall include the appropriate use, which is mining, reclamation, and protection of areas for the extraction of minerals and other extractable resources. Agricultural uses are permitted. Community facilities type 1, 2, and 3 are permitted. And it also allows activity-based and resource-based recreational uses. As I indicated earlier, the expansion of the existing borrow area to mining operation is really what triggers this. Again, the new acreage will be over 30 acres, and thus it's a mine. Access to the site is via Merrifield Lane, which connects to Wildwood Lane, and then provides access to State Road 207. The initial projections for employment would be 15 employees at the site, and then there would be the continuation of the daily truck loads resulting from the mining activity. In 2008, there was a roadway dedication agreement between Putnam County and Westwind Contracting for the dedication of Wildwood Lane to Putnam County. Part of that dedication agreement requires Westwind to maintain Wildwood Lane until it is paved and gives Westwood access for mining activities. And Westwind is also tied with Big Horse and East Coast Aggregate. The drainage system that will be designed for the mine, it will be retain both the 15-year 24-hour and 100-year 24-hour storm events, which meets both the Putnam County concurrency requirements and FDEP requirements. There's going to be approximately a little over 6.5 acres of wetlands impacted, which will be required to be mitigated. An initial review of the Florida Master Site File lists no archaeological or cultural sites in the designated area, and there have been no critical habitats for threatened or endangered species identified within the project area. Staff finds that the land use change to mining is the only future land use category that allows mining activities. The mining operation, if approved by the board, must meet the supplemental use requirements of Article 3 of the Land Development Code, which deals specifically with mining operations. The proposed land use is consistent with the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan. This project has been brought before the Planning Commission. They recommended approval of both the zoning and the land use change, and I'll bring that up when we hit the adoption stage. But just wanted to let you know that it already has been reviewed by the Planning Commission. With that, staff recommends transmittal to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and the other mandated state and regional agencies for review, comment on the proposed amendment to the future land use designation of 221.45 acres from Ag 1, Ag 2 to mining. Do you have any questions for staff?
Mr. Liebman?
Good. Good morning, Mr. Brown. How are you?
Good.
I have no problem with the change in the zoning at all, or on the flume, but what's giving me heartburn is the lack of description of whose responsibility the future pavement will be. You're dealing with 3 different names here, but it's just not clear enough for myself. I can't speak for the others, but I'd like to know timeframes. We're 10 years. What year did we agree that pavement would be applied to this road base?
The original agreement stated that, and that I think it was 08. There was an original agreement stated that within 4 years it would be paved. The road would be paved.
We're at 9.
Yes, there was an amendment that shows up. I've seen it. I know the county attorney has seen it. There's an amendment that indicates that the paving would be delayed until after the mining activity was complete.
Okay, I can see the benefit of that.
Yeah.
Won't tear up the
So,
road. But can we get a better description on whose responsibility it exactly is?
Yes, and the master mining permit is a perfect opportunity because the board can put conditions on that permit.
Okay.
So we can clean it up, that's not a great term. We can stipulate that and clear that up for any future, so everybody knows the time frame and who's responsible in the future. I mean, the agreement for the dedication that required the paving and maintenance did say it was assigned to any successors or assigns were responsible for that. So it's still there, but we'll clarify that as part of that process.
Okay. The residents have put up with a considerable amount of road issues over these years, and my point here is this should be their carrot at the end of the mining process, and I'd like to see it spelled out so they would reap that benefit.
We will do that.
Real clear on that.
Guaranteed.
Okay, thank you.
I promise you.
Any other comments?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Turner.
There's an out parcel in the middle of this. Is it landlocked, or is there a road headed, is there a road going into it?
That's an issue that we are going to deal directly with, I think, with the applicant. Part of this process is also required to go through Development Review Committee, which the first meeting for this is scheduled for tomorrow morning. That is one of my questions to clarify that. We will not landlock any parcel. My understanding, and the applicants here, they are looking and believe they are trying to purchase that parcel. I had heard that they believe they can, but if they can't, we will not landlock, and we will guarantee that access will be provided to that parcel.
Okay, I was of the understanding, piggybacking on Commissioner Liebel's comments, that originally the road was gonna be put in by approximately 2012, and then the decision was made that it would be better to wait until down the road to put it in where they wouldn't damage it with all large trucks. I can see that decision also. But if we add another level of mining to the road, that's just gonna extend it out even further, so before that we do get a pavement. So has that been addressed, or is that gonna be addressed in the development review?
Yes, it will be addressed. It hasn't been.
Obviously there's, I don't know, the proper shell rock or whatever they're mining there. Obviously there's plenty of it in the area. Are we gonna just continue putting the road off further and further down the road for each one of these new parcels that get approved in the area? And I'm like Commissioner Liebel, I have no problem with this going in whatsoever. I think it's, if you're gonna ever have it, this is where it needs to go. But that was my only concern, was are we just kicking the football further down the road on the paving?
We can, again, we will deal with be working with the applicant on the timing of that. I'm hearing the concern and issue from the board that they don't want that kicked down the road infinitum. We will deal with that, and again, that will come before the 5 of you when we come through with the master mining permit, and the conditions will be laid out as part of that issuance of that permit. So you will see that and have the opportunity to approve it.
I'm done, thank you.
Mr. Lymel?
I just want to remind you not to forget assurances.
Yeah.
I want, if we can, if it's possible, I'd like to see the assurances that
yeah.
in the future we get that. Okay.
Yeah. That's a requirement.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I take a little different stand, Mr. Brown. I understand that this agreement was made a long time ago in good faith when they probably were the only ones out there. But I don't see, as a person of business that I like to call myself, that we make any other business pave their road when they're done. I see that we encourage businesses to partner with us, but I've yet to see us force a business to do something like that. I will go along with the board. I just wanted to state my opinion on how I feel today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Manning?
If I might, thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 comments, one of a legal nature, one not of a legal nature. I'll start with the not legal nature. I think one consideration you might all want to think about as far as the paving goes. Once the road becomes paved, then maintenance of it does become the county's responsibility. So something to consider if there's going to be continued mining operations and heavy truck traffic on the paved road. Now, on the legal issue, talking about the landlock, this action today, if you agree to transmit, does not create a landlocked situation. This is just a change in the flume. So obviously, you know, Development Services will continue to address that. But I just want to let you all know for the record that what's being requested here doesn't create a landlocked situation. That may or may not have already occurred in the chain of title and the way these properties are purchased and whether easements were reserved and all of that. I don't know the answer to that, but that's all.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Turner.
The thing is, though, if we move it forward, and like I said, I have no problem with that, and knowing there's a piece of property in the middle of it, then we just need to make sure that at some point it's addressed if they don't own it, because this isn't like they're gonna clear around it and leave the trees standing on it. They're gonna dig a lake around it. And so I guess it could be the island out in the middle, but you'd need a boat to get to it if you owned it.
Well, yeah.
So at some point, it does need to be addressed that they either, if they don't own it, that.
But they may have. My point is that they may, when the person purchased that property in the middle, they may have gotten an access easement, or, you know, we don't know. That's a private matter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, because this is definitely going to come back to us again.
Yes, yeah. Again, this is only transmittal. There's no approvals. It will come back to the board.
Okay, so we do not need to vote on this.
We
need
need to
to
vote
vote.
on
Mr. Chairman, I move we
transmitting.
transmit.
Second.
Okay. All right. We have a proper first, a proper second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, that'll close our 10 a.m. certain, and
Actually, it was public hearing, so we need any public comment if there is any.
You're right. Okay, any public comment? Please come.
Wait a minute. Point of procedure here. We've already voted on this. We need to rescind these votes and start over again if we're going to reopen this.
Well,
am I correct?
Is this the applicant?
Yes, it is the applicant.
I mean, I think you're okay.
Let's
The
hold off
applicant
till after we
give
have
his
our public
presentation, and if you all feel that you need to revote based upon anything you've heard, you could certainly do that.
Thank you.
State your name and your address.
Carl Salafrio, 2401 Northeast 18th Terrace, Gainesville. I'm owner applicant, one of the owners, and also an engineer, environmental engineer. I just want to address two things that came up during the discussion. One was the out parcel. Since we put the application in, we've been working with the owners of the out parcel. They're from Iowa. It's an older couple. We've been able to strike a deal with them, and they've sold the property to us. So the out parcel is no longer an issue. Second issue is the West Wind versus East Coast versus Big Horse, to explain a little bit about how that all occurred. West Wind was the original company that mined the site on the Putnam County, on the St. Johns County part of the line. 5, 6, 7 years ago, they sold to us the West Wind operation, which is now East Coast Aggregates. East Coast Aggregates and Big Horse Aggregates then merged. So it's essentially one company. So the agreement, the road agreement, has now transferred from West Wind to East Coast, i.e. Big Horse. So we are responsible for the road. And just for the record, we maintain the road now. We have very good relations with the property owners. We grade the road, put water on the road when needed. So we don't have any issues with our neighbors at this point, just to let y'all know. Also, John Williams, our operations manager, is here. He'd like to say a few words about the continuation of that agreement as we move forward. So if there's anything else from me, I do have a presentation, but it's pretty much been covered. If you want me to bring the presentation up, I have no problem talking about it.
Commissioners, okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams is here, just wants to say a few words.
Yes, please, have him come forward.
No.
No. That rotating head says no.
Well, I wanted a shot at him.
Okay, so is there any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll close that. Commissioners, we want to stay with our motion. Okay. Everything's, all right, so that closes that.
My motion's still good, yes, sir.
All right. All right, we will actually move to Clerk of Courts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no items other than to remind folks that we will be hosting a Passport Day on April 14th. That's a Saturday for anyone that would like to come apply for a passport that's not able to visit our customer service center during the week. We'll be open from 9 to 2. All they need to do is show up with a passport photo that you can get from one of the local passport photo vendors like CVS, Walgreens, or others. So we'll be open on the April the 14th for Passport Day. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, appointments, Mr. Turner.
Did we get hold of Aaron? Okay. Aaron Fortner's was having to leave the Better Place Plan Committee because she moved into my district. My representative in my district resigned. I would like to appoint Aaron Fortner to replace Tina Arrett for the remainder of that term.
Okay.
I have none, sir.
I have Mr. Pickens.
I do. On District 2 representative with interest in the fishing industry, I have Mr. Tim Donahue. And I have his information, Amanda, that I can get to you.
Okay.
Remember, we decided that we're not going off districts.
Okay, thank you.
On this. And with that being said, if I still have the floor, I would like to see that same rule apply to the Better Place Plan Oversight Committee, so Commissioner Turner cannot steal my representative again.
I think that
like it myself.
feels good to cool. We would have to change the ordinance.
That's correct. Well, I'm halfway serious about it.
No,
We
I'm
changed the
serious,
ordinance
too.
for the Fishing Fund Advisory Committee. People that have this kind of interest, they're far and few between. And you know how hard it is to get good qualified people onto these. I think we'd serve ourselves better if we had, an accountant or two that's retired that would serve on this, and they might be from the same district, but they're still going to hold themselves to a very professional level. I think we'll get a good product out of it, but I'm here to hear what y'all have to say about it.
Mr. Chairman, may I mention? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Harvey. Thank you. Mr. Lible, I agree with you. I think maybe these districts were set up when it was single-member district, and that was important at the time, but now that we run county-wide, we represent the county as an entirety, we should be looking outside of our district. I'm having a hard time in some of my district to find people who really want to serve.
I am too.
So I would love to come to your
I had
area.
the fishing fund open for 2
campaign a little
years.
bit harder for some of your.
Till we changed it, and then I got somebody like that, right out of your district.
Thank you. Well, see? Stole someone from me.
If I might just jump in, as far as the Better Place Plan Committee, that one's a little different from some of the other committees in that that was actually established by the ordinance that was voted on in referendum.
It was,
and
wasn't it?
so I don't believe that could actually be changed without
It's
it
kind of a
going for another
safeguard.
referendum. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Without a vote, yeah.
You got me this time, Terry.
I'm sure you'll pay me back.
You got it.
All right. Any other appointments?
All right, good.
None? We'll close that. We'll go to our county administrator, Mr. Suggs.
Yes, sir. Not a whole lot of comment today. I'm sure we'll have some this afternoon, but one thing that we're working on is, as we do here, we have our employees of the quarter and our employee of the year and things of that nature. One thing I'd like to see is, if, get started and start recognizing staff, not only for the job that they do for you commissioners and for our public and our community, but also recognize them for being part of this staff and this organization. And so what I'd like to do starting in April, with the last meeting of April, is start recognizing those employees that's been here 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on years. And I think it's a lot of institutional knowledge and hard work and effort that they put in for us. So I'd like to take the opportunity and do it. And when I say that, what I like to do is have all the elected officials, our constitutional officers and the county commissioners and those department heads who have staff to be recognized, to form what I like to call a receiving line. So when their names are called out, they get to walk down and be thanked and congratulated by the folks that they serve. And it's another opportunity for us to take to recognize our staff and tell them how much we appreciate them. And I'd like the opportunity to, I'm not asking for permission, but I am sort of asking for consensus of the board to allow us to do more things to recognize our staff whenever possible.
I agree.
So, and that's my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Manning?
Just briefly, and Mr. Smith might want to chime in, but we closed on the purchase of the building yesterday, the old Clark building downtown. It went very smoothly, and I just want to thank actually Kenny Downs for all his hard work on that. Really bringing that to fruition and helping it to go very smoothly. And at this point, I know they're going to be working hard to bring that building up to snuff for what they're looking to use it for. So,
well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Manning. Yes, Kenny Downs really did do the legwork on this. Actually, this process started well over 2 years ago when Mr. Clark was in failing health and knew of the need, particularly for the state's attorney, and that's really what this is targeted to provide better office facilities for the state's attorney. As most of you know, they currently reside on the first floor of the courthouse, and every few years we have a rain event that, because that's below grade, that we then have to move people and rehabilitate and dry out and do those things. And the reality is that's a building that was built in 1906, and we're going to experience those periodically. But with the acquisition of this building, we will also be able to relocate the guardian ad litem folks who reside in the building where our recording and customer service center area is. And since we've moved the customer service center back last July over into that building, it's a little tight for everyone, but this will give us a chance to renovate the Clark building and the Hancock building, who really were together, move the state's attorney's office into the Clark building, and to move the guardian ad litem folks into the spot that was previously the Hancock building. therefore freeing up space that we can then turn around and provide better customer service to the customers. And if you will remember, the purpose of that was so that folks that need to interact with the court or the clerk's office that don't need to be going to an actual court event can do this outside of the security envelope, which makes it much easier, much quicker for them. Parking's a little easier over on that side of the parking lot. So really it's a kind of a win for three different entities, and we're excited about that. The initial work has been done on it. The title work was done, came back clean. The environmental assessment was done, came back mostly clean. Just a couple of things that we can do to mitigate any issues that might reside with that building. And basically what will happen now is an architectural process will start to try to lay out how the offices need to be arranged for the state's attorney and the guardian ad litem. Then that will go out to bid, and we will certainly be working with Melissa on all that process to hire a contractor. Mr. Downs has agreed to continue to kind of monitor that on behalf of the county, not doing the work, but just to monitor that and make sure that we're getting a really good product. So we're kind of excited about it. We also want to recognize that those are historic buildings, and we want to do everything we can to maintain the historic flavor and use of those buildings. Fortunately, this is not taking buildings that were used in retail sales. They were office buildings and will continue to be office buildings. So we had conversations with the city of Palatka to let them know of our plans early on, and they agreed that that was the right use for those buildings and didn't have any opposition, and were a partner in our decision to move forward with that. So it's a good project. Mr. Downs and I talked about this yesterday, and what we want to do is to give you periodic updates on the progress of that. And as we move forward through that, we think it's probably about a year's worth of work. We have identified funding sources currently available to us in various forms of funds that we have. So we won't be seeking any additional general fund dollars to make this happen. We've already really figured out how to make this work with existing revenue. So it's just a good project all the way around, and we're excited about it. And I know the state's attorneys are also appreciative of that, and we've had conversations with the state attorney, R.J. Larissa, in this process all along, so he's certainly supporting it. So thank you, Mr. Manning, and thank you, commissioners, for making that happen.
Thank you. Any
That's
other
it.
comment? All right. Mr. Lible?
Mr. Chair, before, I just want to make sure that we remember we have a 6 o'clock meeting tonight with the City Commission. And so for those items that are on the agenda tonight, I'm only going to ask that the staff that has involvement with those items be here tonight, and not the full department heads. So just want to let you know that. So if you have any questions, you might want to get with them throughout the day today before that meeting. But we're not going to insist that they be here tonight. I think it's, it's imperative that we have those that are involved, but only those.
Okay.
I didn't see anybody get up and cheer.
That's because they enjoy being here. They love service, and they love their county administrator.
They were disappointed, weren't they? It seemed to be disappointed.
Any comments, Mr. Lible?
Yes, I just want to reflect on the fair last week, particularly the ag events. They went really well. The sale was great Friday night, and the folks in this building that participated in that show, we supported the heifer showers this year. They're not, they're subsidized by the Fair Authority, but it doesn't cover their true costs. So that's what we did with our monies this year. And I think it was good. It's never been done before, so they were very surprised. And there were plenty of buyers for the swine and the steer, so everybody got compensated. I'd like to wish everybody a good Friday, this Friday. I think our offices are closed, aren't they, yes, Mr. Suggs? And happy Easter, and thank you. That's it.
Mr. Pickens?
Okay, yeah, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Easter, and a couple of other items, not this weekend, but the following weekend is the 40th annual Catfish Festival sponsored by the Crescent City Rotary Club. Starts out April 6th, Friday at 1 o'clock. The arts and crafts booth will open, and then at 5 o'clock there's a gospel sing, and catfish dinners will be for sale, and then starting at 9 o'clock all day Saturday. We'll have the Catfish Festival with the world-famous swamp cabbage being served at 9 o'clock. And if any of y'all want to go harvest the swamp cabbage with me, I'll get with you after this meeting. We're going to cut next Wednesday, April 4th. Also, I'd like to recognize Angie Wisnott and Parks and Recreation and just thank her for her department and actually allowing Judy Jackson, the South Putnam representative, for continuing the youth volleyball. This, I believe, is the third year that they've sponsored youth volleyball. Because of the high school, the gym, they're putting in a new floor. They've teamed with South Putnam Church. South Putnam Church is a church that I attend, and we purchased the old YMCA building about 2 years ago. And so we're using that facility, so they will use that facility. They have about 6 to 7 teams with 80 girls participating in this volleyball league from ages 8 to 14. Angie, I just want to thank you and Judy and all your staff for your efforts. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything. Today is my oldest son's 30th birthday. I know I don't look old enough to have a 30-year-old child, but Ian is 30, and he and his wife, Shanae, are expecting their first child middle of September, so Holly and I will be grandparents in September, so I just want to wish Ian a happy birthday. Thank you.
Excellent. Mr. Turner?
Yes, I would also like to take this opportunity to say how well I thought the fair went last week. I think it did real well. Other than the one rain night they had to shut down, but they told me it was a Monday night, and that was if they had to have one, that was the night that they would have liked to have it. So at least it worked out partly for them. I would also like to bring up an article in the newspaper last week. We had the discussion in workshop on the tractors and mowers and the leveling blades and what have you, and then we broke and went to the civic luncheon and then after the civic luncheon we went back into workshop and continued the discussion. And so I think that the newspaper didn't get the second half of that conversation, because it made out in the portion that was printed, it made out like I was against being conservative in purchasing the tractors, and that I wanted to blow up and make public works bigger, and that, I mean, because that was the comments that Mr. Harvey made just before we took the break. Well, the part that Brandon missed when he didn't make the afternoon meeting was that I'm not necessarily wanting to be in the mowing business either, but whether we like it or not, we are in the mowing business. And so we need to take this equipment to raise the level of service to the level at least partial of what we would expect somebody else to do it for if they were outside, if we were renting it out. We also passed today a mowing contract on our consent agenda for exactly that purpose. Part of our mowing went out of house today. It had been done and some was added, but it still went out today. So like I said, we are in the mowing business, and the plan that we discussed in workshop takes that single purpose piece of equipment and takes all 5 of those tractors and turns them into dual pieces of equipment. You can now mow with them, or you can do roads with them. So I just wanted Brandon to hear the second half of that story, or like Paul Harvey says, the rest of that story. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you. I'm done.
I'm going to add in there too, because I had several phone calls because of the newspaper. Once you explain it, everybody was happy with it, and what they really liked was the fact of easy, if we need to move a piece of that equipment to one end of the county to the other, it's easier for us to move it. We can put it on a trailer and take it instead of having to drive a grader. So, yeah, they didn't quite get page 2.
Right.
Mr. Harvey?
Thank you. How do you follow Paul Harvey, right? I don't know. I want to say thank you to the Board of County Commissioners, all the commissioners, including our county administrator, our deputy administrator, showed up Friday night And we cooked 190 steaks for the dinner for the buyers and had a really good time out there. No county business was discussed, and we just had fun cooking, if you can imagine, 190 steaks. They were good. Some of them got a little bit more done. Some sustained injuries while they were cooking, non-workers' comp injuries, by the way. And but we do appreciate. It was fun to have us all together and fun for the community to see us all out there. Mr. Suggs and Mr. Reynolds, thank you for coming and adding laughter to the moments too, and we appreciate that. Also want to say thank you to Angie. Last Saturday, the opening day at Flora Home Ball Field. Might not mean a lot to you, but to the people in that community, it meant a lot to them. And Angie, thank you for catching their vision with them. I know you've been wanting to partner with people to make our parks better, and it surely showed Saturday. A lot of work by the Parks and Recreation Department went into making that a success. A lot of work went into the pavilion with the partnership of Florida Power and Light, the new playground equipment with Vulcan Sand Mine, and now I'm being told that pickleball is being requested, and it's going to be coming to us soon. So it's just it's a wonderful thing to see those little T-ballers have so much fun out there on Flora Homes Ball Field that hasn't seen any sustained action in a long time. And Angie, hats off to you and your staff for, I know it's painful at times and it's a lot of work, and I do realize that. But, you know, we often walk around and hear constituents say there's nothing for our kids to do. Well, that's not really true. There are places and there are things for our kids to do in this county. And with the help of our Parks and Recreation, we should be able to make that happen. Also want to say happy birthday to my third daughter, Lindsay. Her birthday is this coming Thursday. She'll be 32 years old. Happy birthday, Lindsay. Mr. Chairman, that's the end of my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Lible?
I was praising the livestock programs. I forgot to thank the Fair Authority.
Yes.
The fair this year, I felt, Commissioners, was probably the best looking fair we ever had. And primarily, we paved the entrance. It kept the lime rock dust off all the rides, and the paint stayed shiny for the whole week for the first time. Had a lot to do with it. But it was crisp and nice looking. I thought the personnel were dressed in uniforms. And even Degler, the people that come with the rides and stuff, were in safety gear and hard hats and steel-toed shoes. I was just totally impressed. It wasn't your normal carnies. But anyhow, I felt we needed to say that. We thank the Fair Authority. They're doing a great job. They're really growing our fairgrounds and its venues, and we have them to appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll go in on that comment. The fair was fantastic. It was enjoyable, very clean, like you said. The paved road, we got a lot of comments on Public Works getting that paved road done. I had a couple comments on our officers out there riding the horses around. I thought that was pretty neat. But it was great. It was great seeing people have a great time. They really, really enjoyed it. And I honestly had a great time cooking with these gentlemen. It was it was entertaining, but without any pressure. We were just cooking steaks and sampling a couple, but we basically were just having a great time. It was.
Mr. Chairman, I got to tell a quick story on that
Yes,
horse.
sir.
I saw these two riding horses through the fairgrounds, and I saw Gator's father, Mr. Deloach, Danny Deloach, which is horse expert, the whole family. But I said, does Joe Wells know what he's doing on that horse? And Danny Deloach looked at me and said, no, but the horse does. So I had to share that with you.
As I think all of us, we do love this community. I travel all over, and there's always something going on. It's just a pleasure to live here. And with that, I am so thankful to be up here and to represent Putnam County. I wanted to thank the staff, too. You don't get enough thanks. The people really see what you're doing. It's easy to complain about anything, but I think the rest of us are getting them, too. I get more positive remarks about what's going on with our staff and what's going on in our county. So anyway, it's good to hear.
Mr. Chairman, one
yes,
last
sir, Mr.
question.
Turner.
I can't ask this question except in workshop or in a meeting. I understand speaking of the fairgrounds, that they've been trying for a considerable period of time to get access out the back across the railroad right-of-way, the old railroad right-of-way or whatever, to get out the back side of that, to try and help with the congestion that comes out of everybody trying to leave the fair on the other side and coming through from the parking lot actually exits out on the back side of the fairgrounds also, instead of exiting out the front. Does anybody have any history of why we haven't been able to get an easement or something across that? I mean, I understood that maybe the railroad was approached a few years ago perhaps, and that they just turned them down, or do we have any knowledge of what went on there at all? Or is that back before everybody that's up here is here, or? No?
That's a good question for Mr. Castleberry, our former attorney. I think he did have negotiations a couple times, but I don't know what they were.
Perhaps ask him, or I mean, somebody.
Sure.
I mean,
You can do that.
I mean, it would be much better if we could either redesign something to bring another road out to where the ingress is into the major parking lot, or either go across without sending them back through the fairgrounds again, back by behind the livestock buildings. And that's how you get out right now if you do it correctly.
Right, no, that'd be great. I think my suggestion would be we let Mr. Cuneo from Public Works do it. His last negotiation with the railroad saved us a lot of money, didn't it, Press? Maybe that's a joke, but anyhow, he did. And
well, it may go to that. I mean, we may need Public Works to contact them, or either take a look at it and make a suggestion. I mean, that is our on-the-ground engineering department for the county. So
he did a good job. At the railroad crossing at the moorings, we were looking at thousands of dollars, and he probably got it cut 80%. Yeah. It was just unreal.
Well, maybe we need to have them look at it and see if that's in fact what they recommend before we go through the motions of trying to get that easement. Maybe we could get them to take a look at it and just give us their recommendation of what the proper traffic flow should be in their opinion.
I agree.
Okay.
Do you think we could add that to our next transportation? You know, just a small 5-minute synopsis of different scenarios?
You mean next month or today?
Yes, sir, next month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other comment? This meeting's adjourned.